Animism Radio. I'm your host, Laura Giles. Thanks for being here. Today, I'm joined with our co-founder, Cherie Calvert, and private group member, Simon Faur. And today, we're going to be talking about the archetypal shadow. So let's get started by giving gratitude and creating a sacred container for today's podcast. Acknowledge and thank the element of earth for the home, food, foundation, beauty, sensuality, stability that surround us all. Acknowledge and thank the element of air for the creativity that keeps us going, for carrying our words to the ancestors and to all of you. I appreciate all people tuning in. Got lots of growth out there, so that's really fantastic. And I acknowledge and thank the element of fire for giving us the sun to keep us warm, to help the plants grow, and connecting us to our power and responsibility. I acknowledge the element of water and thank you for sustaining our lives and reminding us to flow. I acknowledge and thank our loving, helping ancestors as always from the human, plant, animal, and mineral kingdoms. And I thank you for all the help that we receive that's seen and unseen. And of course, I give gratitude to all of our listeners. And if the show inspires or helps you, please consider donating to the program. And you can do that on our website at pansociety.net. And if you want to engage in the conversation, of course, you can join us at probably the best place is our Facebook group where we met Simon. So thanks, Simon, for being here. How are you?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready.
And thank you, Cherie, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So the archetypal shadow, there's so much we could say about that. Where do you guys want to start?
Well, one of the things I love about the shadow is that it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. You know, I personally am a fan of the kind of Jungian interpretation where shadow is the things we repress in ourselves. Those could be positive or negative traits, you know, things that we kind of quell beneath the surface, repressed by society or our family growing up, things like that. But I think it's really important to integrate those parts of us so that we can, use them to our advantage and see that we are not wholly good or wholly bad. And the shadow can be either of those parts that we deny in ourselves based on, what other people have told us.
Yeah, I think I really like the shadow too because I'm really motivated by personal growth, spiritual growth, and just getting to be I don't know if better is the right word because that's duality, but more whole person. And I think you can't do that unless you're willing to go into your shadow and willing to face it. And it's not easy, especially when you see something that doesn't look the way you think it should. But those have just been the most transformative times for me is when that stuff comes up.
Right.
Yeah.
So even though it's like, I try to keep a curious mind about it because then it makes it not so serious and not so judgy. You're just like, oh, I didn't know that was in there. Look at that kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shadow for me, it's one of those I struggle with. I mean, I still do. I know a couple years ago, I had really, really bad struggles. Like when we went when we were in New Orleans, however many years ago that was. But it was really bothering me then. And, and we did that float tank, or I did that. But experiencing that and then realizing that, because at the time I was really just trying to be a quote unquote a good person. Like I wanted to be that super happy, everything's great all the time, motivational type. Like I wanted to have that for myself, and then I wanted everybody else to experience that too. And it was killing me, like because I was so terrified of having, of being angry, experiencing anger, or showing anger, or not agreeing with everybody, or being disruptive in certain ways. I hate it. Like I didn't like the idea of doing all that, and trying to fight the shadow side of me and the dark side of me. It was really bothersome, and that's not a wholesome living, like because it was making me worse than I really was. And so when it finally did happen, I had a huge burst of everything, like it all came out, and I was just angry for a while. So I think you have to have a healthy balance and a healthy relationship with it, and understand that it's there. I mean, it's meant to be there. You have to have it.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think our more negative aspects, or things that we socially consider negative, again, we're meant to have them. If we weren't meant to have them, they wouldn't be a part of us. And a lot of times those negative things are what drive us to do those positive things.
For
Like,
sure.
I know from like something that I've always struggled with, which I've gotten more balanced with, I would say now, but growing up, I had a really bad anger problem. You know, I couldn't control my anger. I was quick to get mad. Yet I've seen now, after trying to just completely obliterate all aggression from me and just, you know, take everything calmly, take everything passively. A lot of times aggression is what kept me going, kept me accomplishing things. You know, I was mad at the way my life was, or I was mad at the things around me, which gave me the drive to actually do things and make my life better and things like that. And I think every negative, quote unquote, aspect we have of ourselves that we keep in our shadow does have its place. It's just delving into it, seeing it for what it is, and then seeing, okay, how can I use this harsher energy to bring me to the places that I need to be and that I want to be.
Well, sometimes I think in our society, particular, and we're all American, the shadow is the face of the archetype. So as you were talking, Simon, what I was kind of envisioning in my head is the hero, because that's what motivates the hero to do something. Is something's wrong here, you know, I'm in pain, and it starts as a motivation to change things. But the hero in our society, I think, is the athlete, and it's the celebrity, and you see them, you know, grandstanding when they're blinging, and they're displaying the shadow sides of the hero. And I think that because heroes are what we aspire to, so then we aspire to the shadow and not to the bright side of the hero, which is okay. So you go out and do these things, and then you accept your failings and you accept your flaws. You don't just keep yourself on a pedestal there and be like, oh, look at me, I'm so far above you, I'm so much better than you. You know, I mean, that's a shadow.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand that. I mean, because how many people want, you know, oh, I want all this money, I want this big car, I want this and that, all these trappings of I'm good enough, I am better than you, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. And people can often deny that I think like struggle in life to get those things that you want, those things that, you know, show success, show that you're doing quote unquote better, you know, those require actual struggle, they require work. And and I think that's what the shadow best represents as well, is, you know, like Cherie said, those are the things you don't want to look at, because those are things you deny in yourself. They're things that if you're really looking into your shadow, it's never a pleasant experience. You know, you're looking at the things that you're denying, the things that are a part of you, but you don't want to acknowledge. You know, you don't want to acknowledge that you can be hateful, or that you can be weak or fragile, you know. You just want everyone else to see the best parts of you, which can lead you to projecting those terrible things onto other people and, you know, breaking apart everybody, both in interconnectedness and as individuals.
Well, and as you were talking about that, then it reminded me of the racial discussions that we're having.
Oh yeah.
Seeing lots and lots of shadow popping out, and that's good, you know. I mean, nobody wants to be the bad guy. Nobody wants to be, you know. I mean, some people, I guess, you see that too. You know?
Yeah.
But I think it's a good opportunity to start seeing those things within you, and it is hard. So I'm having lots of conversations these days. And trying to be in the space of listener. I'm not always good at that. Just to see, you know, what's tweaking me, what's behind there, because I really truly don't want to hurt people, and I want to grow through this. And it's a hard conversation to have, though, because everybody's impacted. So everybody's triggered, and it's really hard to have that honest conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a great example of shadow self coming out, is everything that's going on right now. Because it's very interesting if we can all take a step back, because like I would say social media is the biggest one, right? Because we have a lot of people you don't personally know, but everybody has an opinion. Yeah. And then if you're compassionate enough and you want to sit there and actually have a conversation and see where it's coming from, because there are some people that, I mean, everybody has a different view, everybody has a different experience, everybody is seeing it differently. Like and it's a struggle. Like I have friends whose spouses are law enforcement, and then I have friends that are on the protesting side. I have friends that have been affected by law enforcement in negative ways. I have, so you're trying to hear where everybody's come from, and everybody's just like exploded on each other. Like I've watched friend groups fall apart of like people that I know have been friends for years.
The family too.
The family, absolutely.
Yeah.
But if we can take a step back and realize, like, not realize, but if we can just all talk about it and take a step back and see where everybody's coming from and hear each other, we can work on something, hopefully. But yeah, it's like for the people that were holding back and not saying anything at all, this is their moment, and they're exploding and the shadow side's coming out. And there's people that it was just always out and it's exasperated right now. So they have no light side, or, and I air quotes again, good side. So it's interesting seeing everything happen, and there's so many emotions. Like my heart is breaking every day, and it's kind of made me pull back because I just don't want to have conversations now with people, because there's just so much emotion happening and nobody's owning up to what, their stuff.
Yeah.
And sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that when Cherie was talking, it reminded me of, Jungian talks about projection. When you refuse to acknowledge your own shadow self, you see all of your negative qualities or perceived negative qualities, and you put them on other people. And just as she was saying, people aren't willing to talk to each other. We need to have these conversations, as difficult as they are. We need to collectively delve into this shadow of society, which is racism or, disparities and things like that. But at the same time, you've got people on both sides projecting onto the other side everything that they perceive as negative about the situations. On one side, it's, whatever, everybody's all racist, everybody's, it's, you people are automatically racist, you are all shadow, you are, racism or whatever. And yet at the same time, they will say, they cannot be racist because of their race, or something like that, or that they alone are able to talk about racism because of their race, then enacting, more racism. And you have people just throwing all of their negativity on the other side, when in reality, for us to really delve into the shadow together, we need to hear the other person's side, see the shadow that they see in us, let them know the shadow we see in them, and together kind of figure out, all right, so how do we get out of this together? We're both right in some ways. We're both wrong in probably more ways. How do we figure out where that is and how we can, combine it together to move forward?
So one of the things that I've always done is I can kind of somewhat, because I look ethnically ambiguous, I can sort of hide. And if on my social media, I don't have my picture, and that's deliberate. That is kind of I've done this like my whole life. It is to force people to see me for who I am and not who you think I am. And I'm realizing now that that's a shadow. Why not just stand and be who you are? I mean, it has been a way for us to connect, but do I need to do that really?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's interesting that you say that, because for my profile picture, I have mine, and I think I'm going to change and try yours for a little bit. But also on my social media, it's mostly, I only have people I know personally, because it makes me weird that for strangers to be on there.
Yeah.
But a lot of people that I have had around or whatever, or people that I considered really good friends. I remember having people over for dinner, and we were really actually having a race discussion. And most of my life, it's been kind of weird because, you know, I'm not Asian enough for the Asians, and I'm not like, there's a whole thing here. Yeah. But that night happened to be, everybody was pale. I was the only non-pale person there. And, you know, so the conversation is definitely very different. But then one of my friends said, she's like, yeah, but you wouldn't understand. You're white. And I was like, but I'm not. Like, that's what you see me as. Like, and because I sat there and my jaw dropped, and I was like, wait, is that how you see me? You think I'm white? And then I wanted to pick this apart. I was like, well, why do you think that? Is it visually, you know, do you see yourself in me or something? Like, is there something there that you see that I need to reflect on myself too? And so there was this whole conversation because she just didn't see it. And I couldn't make her see that I was not, you know, we were not the same color or whatever, the same ethnicity. And it boggled my mind a little bit, but then I'm like, okay, so, you know, what do I do with that? Like, how do I, you know, because part of it was my stuff and part of it was her stuff. And you know.
Yeah.
I think that's a beauty of relationships, though. You know, we help each other to grow.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to both of your points. You know, Cherie, like you said, they just kind of projected that identity onto you. You know, you might have your own identity of, I am this and this, or I am all this, or whatever, and then someone else will tell you what you are to them. And just like you were saying, Laura, how you kind of keep your identity hidden behind your profile picture. I understand where you're coming from, and that's exactly why I do the opposite. I used to hide who I was, or I wasn't even on social media for a long time just because I thought it was a dumpster fire. But you know, so I know that no matter what, when the conversation starts, I'm going to be the white guy, or a white guy, or just another white guy. You know, that is what I will be perceived as, and that's what I am going to be assigned. And, you know, if you don't, someone else is always going to pick a side for you in these conversations, especially something that is so superficial as skin color or genetics. And so I kind of use that to my advantage now, you know, because you're going to tell me how you feel. You're going to see me, and you're going to tell me how you feel about this entire topic. Am I inherently evil to you? That tells me about you. That tells me where you're coming from. Am I another victim just like you? That tells me where you're coming from and where your perception on this whole situation is. And then that gives me an opportunity to talk to you. You know, so if you think I'm inherently evil, why? Why do you think that? Don't you think it's kind of weird that you're assuming I'm a bad person because of my race? Doesn't that kind of say racism to you? Or at the same time, you know, and one thing I worry about for society as a whole is that this projection of racism onto like the white community, that we are all just inherently racist, is going to actually create racists. It's going to be like, well, if you're just going to assume that I'm a horrible person no matter what, then screw you and everybody that looks like you, you know. And that's something I think about a lot, which actually worries me because, you know, not to get too much into the weeds, but I think this is all a very deliberate thing politically. But, you know, it's this idea that if we say that there's vision enough, we say that there's a shadow enough of certain people, we can cultivate that shadow and make it manifest, and then everything we've been lying about will become true because we were able to create it.
Yeah, we do have to be careful about what we consume in the media, the things we talk about, who we say, because I think the hero, as we represent it in our society, is in shadow. And that's what we're putting up to people, that this is what you need to be. You know, I don't know how many girls out there, and guys too, I think, but to a lesser degree, are like, what do you want to grow up? I want to be famous.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and the shadow lover is the archetype too. It's how many people can you sleep with? Casanova. Can you be Casanova? That's a shadow lover. Mm-hmm. That's not the healthy lover.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and people with the ruler, it's like, you know, you want to be the tyrant. You get to tell everybody what to do, and that's shadow as well. That's not a healthy ruler. So I think we do need to be looking at what is healthy. Where do we want to be? It can't just be knee-jerk reaction and about, you know, my feelings are hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
one of the
also,
things,
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
I think if we understand ourselves very well too, because I want to believe we all inherently start in a balanced place, right? We don't know right, we don't consider right and wrong. I mean, we do know right and wrong, like you don't go murder people right out the gate or whatever, you know, but we do know if it hurts somebody's feelings, we don't do it, or you know, taking is wrong, it's not ours. So I mean, even as children, you kind of have that innocence guide, you know, the innocent way of perceiving things. But as we get older and then we taste wealth or we taste riches or experience or whatever, like we always have these people that start off as great leaders. Like they have great ideas, they're good at rallying people, they're good at sharing ideas and teaching and bringing us together. And then all of a sudden, you know, a couple years later, there's a sex scandal or a horrific thing about them. Like there's this downfall. And I don't know if it's because we're naturally pulling them down or if they were always a bad person or something, or even if they just didn't embrace that shadow side or didn't protect themselves. Like they didn't, like it's okay to indulge, but you know, and that's everything. But like, I wonder if they just got so sucked into the shadow side of themselves that it just became this other thing. Like it just consumed them and their identity.
Yeah, I can see that, and it's funny because I think when you say that, it makes me think of you know, like earlier the other day during the conversation on the statues on the private group, Laura mentioned on your comment about, you know, should we tear down Martin Luther King and Gandhi because they weren't perfect people. And I think we see these heroes, and we can focus on, like we've been saying, we want to embody these heroes, we want to see these heroes in ourselves. And then we can forget that they were normal people. They had shadow sides just like the rest of us. They were capable of making mistakes, capable of doing things that we wholly aspire not to do. And then we kind of get at this dichotomy, you know, this person is wholly good, you know, so let's just pretend Gandhi never did anything bad. Let's pretend that Martin Luther King never did anything bad, and he is just perfect, and you need to be perfect too. Or at the same time, let's see these people that we consider wholly evil and say that they never did anything good. I mean, a good example in recent years, or what feels like recent years, would be someone like Bill Cosby. You know, obviously horrible things that he did with women, but you also can't deny that he helped educate a lot of children in his younger years. You know, the shows he had did teach you actual, and yeah, maybe he wasn't embodying these traits in his own life. But, you know, I was a fan of Fat Albert, and my dad had us watch like those older cartoons. He really liked Bill Cosby, you know, and I still remember a lot of those shows, and I still think those shows were good influences on me. But now, you know, in this culture where you have to be wholly good or wholly bad, that's just getting more and more extreme as days goes on. You know, let's just erase him from the map. Let's erase everything he did from the map. Let's not separate the art from the artist. Or the actions from the hero. You know, you have to be one or the other, which kind of, I think we lose a lot when we forget that people can make mistakes. People can start out good and become bad. People can start out, again, as we perceive, bad and then become good, you know, or still do good things while being a bad person and still do bad things while being a good person by society's standards.
Well, and I think that's probably the rubber meets the road with, are you an animist or not? Because, you know, we live in a Judeo-Christian culture where everything is, and even a dualistic universe, you know, everything is good or bad. But if you're an animist, then it's complementary dualist, and you got to take the good with the bad. And if you can't do that, if you're really going to say, well, this is bad, and I'm not saying you can't say, okay, I don't want to hang out with this narcissist anymore. You know, you got to do what you got to do to protect yourself. So I'm not saying, you know, you have to live with it, but can you be in a place where you can accept it? I think that's the difference. And I'm having some conversations with people who are just really black and white. This is bad, this is good, you're bad, that one's bad, you know, and it's not that simple. And one of the things too that I'm seeing, kind of jumping around a little bit, but with not having my picture, they don't know who they're talking to. And so they because of your opinion, they think, oh, this person is this. And that could go a lot of different ways depending on the conversation. Yeah. And then I hate doing this, but as soon as I pull the, okay, I'm multicultural card, then it becomes a totally different conversation. It's like, oh, well, you have less value now, or you have more value now, or, you know, and I don't want to be judged that way. Can I just be a person? Can you just be a person having a conversation? You know, can we just be people with different opinions, flawed people with different experiences, and you know, be where we are because of the results of our experiences, and still be okay with talking to each other? Does it have to be so complicated?
Right.
I think cancel culture is part of it. Right now, it's one of those things that we don't give people room to make mistakes. We don't give people, and we want to force an apology or something. And even then, we want to punish you so hard, you lose everything. And I mean, I think I'm totally, I get some of it, but, you know, Simon, you're right. You brought up these things where, I mean, I have to think about this too. Like, you know, when Laura, we were talking about the statues, the Martin Luther King or Gandhi, and I think of other ones like, you know, J. Marion Sims, the statue, I'm not sure where his statue is, but he's the father of gynecology. A lot of women are alive today because of him, except how he got the knowledge was extremely horrendous. He used slave women and dissected, you know, he basically operated on them without anesthesia and, you know, without consent. But so it's one of those things. I think we do need to talk about both of them. So yeah, he gave us this great stuff, and then, but he also did this. Like, I think you have to give the whole story. Like, you can't just paint history or change history that it didn't happen. And I think maybe with all of that, I think these are conversations that I think, so this is kind of why I'm against statues, period. Like, I don't like idolizing anybody because we're all in that pot, right? I mean, if I were to ever run for president, I hate to figure out, you know, listen to what everybody digs up about me from my past, and, you know, God knows whenever. But it's understanding that we were all human. Like, it's just, we make mistakes, and it's how we deal with it and how we treat each other afterwards too. I mean, because I was watching just recently, and I don't know if you guys know who this is, Jenna Marbles on YouTube. She's a YouTube personality. Has been on the platform for decades, well, maybe 15 years or so. Just up and quit her channel because some people had found some old stuff that she did way back in the day that she had already pulled off years ago, because she realized that it wasn't great for anybody. Like, she wanted to create a space that was not harmful for people. But then cancel culture happened. Like, they're like, you did this 20 years ago, you're an awful person, you don't deserve what you have. And why? Because she's done so much since then that has been very very nice for people. She's contributed so much to people. So I don't understand why. Like, so I am conflicted about that, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. And then, you know, and then you hear, oh, he was an adulterer, oh, he might have been a pedophile, or he or she did this. And then I'm like, oh, so I'm like, what do I do with this information? Like, where do I channel this?
Well, for me, it's I was thinking about this of all things in the shower this morning. I don't know why, but but I was just thinking of so when I was younger, I used to be a lot more rigid and judgy. I'm a 1. My Enneagram number is a 1. And I was a cancel culture. I don't like that. You cross the line, forget it, get out of my life. I don't ever want to see you again. And didn't even look back. I'm just like, whatever. And I was breaking up with this guy, and I just remembered how self-righteous I was. And it was exactly what you're saying. So you did this bad thing, I want you to pay forever. You know, you're never going to get around this thing. And it just hit me for some reason this morning how self-destructive that was. I mean, so we were trying to reconcile. And I'm like, how can you reconcile with somebody like that? You're making this person feel like crap. Nobody wants to feel like crap. They want to feel good around you. So if you're like punishing them and stuff, that's not reconciliation. And it wasn't helping me either, because it was keeping me in a state of pain. So I think, you know, yeah, we do have these feelings. Yes, we do have these you know, oh, I want to make you pay, but keep moving. You know, it's gonna pass, and hopefully when it does, you'll get to that juicy, warm, loving center inside of you where you want that connection and you want that love to flow, and you can be vulnerable enough to let it happen. You know?
Yeah. Well, and to integrate both of your points, so like Cherie, you were talking about cancel culture. You know, I see that as kind of this movement to demoralize everyone.
Yeah.
You need to, we're going to find anything bad that you ever did. And when we do, we're going to remind you that you are a piece of crap. You know, you are worthless. You are wholly, wholly bad.
Yeah.
And just like you were saying, Laura, about being self-righteous, I think a big message that comes from working with the shadow is forgiveness.
Yeah.
Being able to forgive other people, being able to see that, yeah, you messed up. Yeah, you did something that hurt me or hurt yourself or hurt other people. You really made a mistake. But that doesn't mean you're nothing but mistakes, you know? And when we let ourselves believe that other people can be wholly bad, well, now what happens when you make a mistake?
Right.
You know, now you have already decided to stay internally consistent. You already decided that you are wholly bad. And I think that is a big part, you know, of this cancel culture, is to make everybody, quote unquote, realize that they are horrible, so that we can find someone else to tell us, you know, this is what you have to do to be good. And then, you know, you're not integrating that shadow. Everybody's just begging to be accepted as good. So I'm going to do whatever anybody tells me, as long as, you know, I can feel like a good person again, which is very destructive, I think, for society,
Right.
and individuals altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. And it robs you of your sovereignty.
Correct.
I mean, you have to be the ultimate judge on who you are and what you believe. And if you are always relying on somebody else for your self-worth, that's just a real vulnerable place to be.
Yeah.
Well, I have a friend who recently quit Facebook. Well, she takes breaks every now and then because she's one of those people. I love her as a human being, but she there are instances where it's like mob mentality, where she's so against something, and then she just tells everybody else. She puts these edicts out, like, you need to hate this, or so and so did this. And I'm like, well, I wasn't, so I never jump on this. I'm like, well, I wasn't there. What's the rest of the conversation? What happened? What, you know, I need detail. I'm a Gemini. I need details. Like, I need I need information. And even then, I probably won't pick a thing anyway. But it's just listening to her inflexibility, because I used to try to argue with it or put in, well, what did you think about this angle, or maybe this person felt this or whatever, and she's like, no, this is, you know, and I'm like, well, but you're being the bad guy now. Like, you are creating an army to hate someone, or you are not even trying to grow or change or hear something from somebody else's point of view, because we all have a reason on how we got somewhere. And you know, and then when you do, I feel this way with a lot of people in groups, like, they feel like they're doing right because they're so screamy for everybody else, and they're like, you know, and to the point that it's hilarious. Like, there was an instance where I'm in a sewing group on Facebook because I like to sew, and somebody asked if they can make a hanbok, which is a traditional Korean dress. And she was not Korean, and she made that perfectly clear. And she said somebody else commissioned her to do this. Everybody else jumped on her, like, you can't do this, you're not Korean, you're not whatever. And I was like, how do you know she doesn't work for a theater company? How do you know she is not part of a historical society? And I was like, there's no law out there that says only Korean people can make hanboks. And then I was looking, and not one of these people was Korean. I was like, look, I'm a Korean, not that this means much, but I give you permission. Like, I don't care. You make that hanbok and you send me pictures of it. Like, I don't understand. Like, everybody's like, you can't, it's the mentality behind it. And they think they're doing great because they're standing up for everybody else. But the voice is, like, let the people that are actually being oppressed stand up for themselves, and then you listen, or just listen in general. Like, do you really, when you start championing causes like that, you're hurting everybody there.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
When I went to a reservation, I was devastated to see everything. And, you know, I have resources, I have skills, I have things that I can contribute. And it's hard to sit back and look at that and not do something, but they need to do it for themselves. It's part of a healing process. It's part of regaining your identity and your strength. And it's that hero journey. You can't make that hero journey for anybody else. They have to do it for themselves, because that part of that is meeting your shadow and breaking away from the oppression or your mother or whatever the thing is that's holding you back. You cannot be a hero by having somebody pick you up and put you somewhere else. You just can't.
Yeah. No, and I really like that you bring up doing things for yourself, because again, going back to sovereignty, and that's, personal responsibility and individuality is of the utmost importance. And that's what I find so ironic about this social justice movement of, we need to defend other races, is you're assigning them this victim role. You have these super, to use the lingo, super woke whites, who are out here. We're here to defend you. We're here. We are the moral authority. We are whites. We know that we are the ones who can save you. We are the ones who can help you, because you can't do it on your own. Y'all can't figure these things out on your own. And, just like Cherie said, I'm Korean. I give you the pass to make the Korean dress. Let these people decide what they want, and stop telling them what they need to do. Some of the most popular speakers, well, I should say least popular, but I think, most intellectual speakers in the Black community today are people like Thomas Sowell. He talks a lot about how one of the biggest things affecting Black communities right now are that they aren't taking responsibility for their own actions. They are looking for handouts. They are looking for, things to be given to them under this idea that they are owed because of, the history of the country and things like that. And it hurts them more than it helps them. And I think that works for anyone in any situation. If you believe that things are owed to you, or if you believe that other people need to do things on your behalf, you never take responsibility for your own actions, and you can't ever really better yourself. You can't ever be that hero, because you're always living in the shadow of this villain and letting him run, letting the shadow energy run your entire existence and define your existence.
Yeah, I think that's, you could apply that to any archetype. So the explorer archetype, if you live through somebody else's adventures, they're not your own. If you live through somebody else's conquests, their love life, that's not your experience. And the last thing I want to do is be a bystander in my own life. I'm okay with making mistakes. I'm okay. God knows that I was thinking about the president running for president thing that you were talking about. I am the most imperfect candidate. If you want to dig up some dirt on me, there's plenty. Okay. So I'm just like, okay, I own it all. And I've done some dumb stuff. So let me just tell you. But we grow, and it's okay. And if you're going to hold me to that, then you're not seeing who I am today. And I would like to see who you are today. I think it's juicy to have that relationship today. We're not going to be the same person 5 minutes from now. So let's just have it today.
And that, on a quick note, that's something I wanted to bring up, what you said earlier. We can't decide our past. We can't change our past. However we got to where we are now, this is who we are. This is how we got here. And living in the past and focusing on what people have done to define them now is unhealthy. It's not going to work. Right. We have judgment. We have this ability to judge so that we can figure out the best way to move forward. Did the things I do I want the kinds of things that happened from my mistakes to happen again? Do I see you for who you are, and do I want you to affect my future? And if you are someone who learned from your mistakes, then yes, I want you in my future. I want you to be a voice of reason that can help me see my own mistakes. Or if you're not learning from it and you're stuck in the past, well, you're going to still be in the past when I'm moving forward. And that's not going to help anyone.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the sage is another archetype, and if you want to get to a place of wisdom, you have to make mistakes. you have to look in your shadow. So it's all part of living. To not have a shadow is to not live, or to not see your shadow, because we all have one, you know? I mean, to me, I think it's sexy, it's exciting, and it's hurtful. It's you know, it's a ego crushing, but that's part of destruction is part of it too. You know, you got to get your ego crushed every now and then. You know, your heart never breaks, you don't love well. So it's just part of being in the game.
It's negativity that gives you the ability to see the positive.
Exactly.
You know, if you have nothing to compare it to, then positivity is just boring.
Yeah.
Because you have nothing to compare it to. It becomes the mundane. And that's why struggle, both internal and external, matters so much. That's why the shadow matters so much, because it's only through the shadow and what is projected that we can actually see where the light is.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, everybody thinks it's so, I don't know, embarrassing, and it is. I'm not gonna say it's not.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But you know, if you got a good sense of humor, you can laugh your way through anything.
Right. I mean, I think about that, like
forgiveness.
For sure. Especially, I mean, and the thing is, and you're right, Laura. It means you lived. Like, I mean, I've done crazy stuff, and like the thought of social media before, like, because I was there in the days of MySpace, and so like, and when you didn't really care, it was like you could have all the numbers, and then when Facebook happened, you're like, oh, I need to be really careful about who I'm letting back, because everybody comes out of the woodworks, everybody from your childhood, everybody from your whatever, and you're like, do I really want to go down this road? And then for me, some of them I was like, oh, I like them and cool, but then I thought, well, did somebody grow and learn and change and do something different? So I'm like, oh, I'm interested in that. And then you see, and then you're like, well, what about me? Did I change? Did I grow? Did I get better? Hopefully. It's like, or did I learn something along the way? And I think that, like, I don't take back anything I've experienced in my life. I'm trying to think about this now as I'm saying this, but I mean, I regret hurting people, especially if it was intentionally. And unintentionally, but I think part of that's all of our story, right? That's all of our growth, our path for wherever we're going. So I don't regret any experience that I ever had or any decision I made, because I had to do it to get here, and I had to learn. And I think part of that too is when I finally became a responsible adult, doing shadow work and looking into that is, you're like, ugh, like, did I gain something from this, or I did that? And then you're like, okay. And then you're okay with it. And then you're okay with things in the future. Like if you have to make terrible decisions, you can, or if you have, because sometimes you just don't have, it's that question that you can get, it's like your family is waiting at a bus stop, or, there's a train that's about to derail to hit a bunch of orphans or whatever, and you have to pick who dies. Like, it's a sucky question, but if you are understanding of yourself, it's telling on who you're going to choose to die.
Yeah. And I love those ethical questions, because I do believe they're so important. When you're forced to make a negative choice or a negative choice, that's the best time to figure out who you are and what you actually value. Because either way, you're not going to be happy with what you did. And sometimes in life, we do have to make these negative, perceivably negative choices to make room for other positive events. You have to take away, you have to make space for new things to cultivate and to grow. Just like Cherie, you're a better gardener than I am, but you prune like parts of a plant so that it can grow more healthily. If you just let everything go unruly and take a completely passive approach and just say, I'm going to never make any mistakes, I'm never going to do anything negative, I'm not going to take any risks, things usually end up perceivably worse in the future. Yeah. You have to be willing to make those mistakes. The importance is that you act, I think, and you're going to do things wrong, but you don't learn anything from doing things right. You don't not learn anything, but you learn so much more when you do things wrong than when you do things right. It makes it easier for you to do things right in the future.
I think those attitudes have to be modeled, though, because it's one thing to have them internally, but if you don't ever speak them, then the people around you, especially have kids, then they don't learn, because they can't benefit from your internal process.
Mm-hmm.
if you're on social media and you just sit, you're a lurker and you never share?
See, I'm guilty of that. Like a lot. But no, for sure. For me, I can't process that quickly. Like I have to think about some things.
Yeah.
And that's because I'm not in touch with my shadow side a lot of the times, because I don't want to say the wrong thing, or I don't want to edit myself later. And which is kind of stupid, because we're allowed to edit and change ourselves. And I'm embracing that a little bit more personally, because that's life. That's how it works, right? Like you have, because some of the people that I have the hardest time listening to are people that can't budge or edit themselves or say, oh, I made a mistake, or, which used to be a problem of mine, especially when I was way younger. It's having this maybe entitlement, or I don't know what it was, but it was just like, never wrong, never whatever. I got to stick to my guns, got to, double down on everything I say. And that's just not true. Like you have to be willing to suck it up and be like, oh, no, I was wrong. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's, that's something I really like about, Pan Society in general, or since I've joined the group, like you said, lurking in the media, not saying anything, just listening and doing your best to avoid offending anyone. Something I've loved about Pan Society is I really have, I've talked to both of you when I first joined. I was really worried about saying the wrong thing. I was really worried about offending someone too much, or being too honest, because I have a lot of unpopular opinions. But I know now that I really can say what I want. And when I say what I want or say what I feel, sometimes I'll look back at it and I'll be like, I didn't say anything constructive here. I really just had an emotional fit and shouldn't have said what I said or whatever. But then I learned from that, and having that ability to say those things, having the ability to be completely honest and let not only yourself reflect on your own actions, but see the reflection of yourself through other people's reactions. Maybe I said something that I thought was going to offend everybody, and people agreed. Maybe I said something that I thought everybody was thinking, and people, showed me like, hey, that's a really weird position to take on this. And I think that benefits everyone.
Me too.
That authenticity matters so much, because if you're not being authentic, then you're not anything. You're just, you have become a shadow of society as opposed to a light within it.
Yeah. Integrity is so important to me. Somebody with the worst opinions could change, and somebody with no opinion can start having them. But you gotta be authentic. You have to have some integrity and stand for something. And like you said, Cherie, you can edit. Be like, oh, what's that? I don't know what I was talking about. It's okay.
And I like those conversations. I like when people respond with their gut reactions, or even just if they've thought about it and this is how I feel, because it gives me something to think about too. It gives me an angle that I didn't see. It gives me maybe something I need to think about. Like maybe I was just too opinionated on something and I'm on the wrong side, or maybe not even the wrong side, but maybe I was trying to force an idea that's not conducive to what's happening. So I like those things. I like those when people share, or especially when they have wildly different opinions. Like Laura and I don't agree on everything. Like and I like that, because there's a differing point of view. Like we are coming from different places, so we have a different perspective. And whether our shadow sides are involved in that or not, we all can learn from that and pick something, like if we're willing to hear it. And so I short of saying it's okay to kick puppies, I'm down with hearing things like,
because I think it's, if you show up authentically, no matter what your reality is, it's a way of honoring the space and saying, I belong here, really. I belong here, I trust you, and here I am. That is such, I've been talking on YouTube about tribe, and that is such a tribal thing. we don't have tribes. And if we desperately need tribes, and if you have a space like that, my God, use it and honor it and love it and grow it.
Yeah. And that's something, again, going back to, Jung, and his interpretation of shadow, he has this idea of collective unconscious, things that humans as a whole need. We can be individuals, but at the end of the day, we're all still human. And there are some things that are going to be a part of you no matter what. And just like we need a tribe and we don't have a tribe, our tribes are kind of replaced and forced onto us now with these, social ideologies, or these large groups that don't value you as a person, or you don't even have a voice in them. But you are part of the party or part of the movement or whatever, and you just have to conform as opposed to help shape the group that you belong to, which really, reduces our diversity of opinion, reduces our individuality, reduces our authenticity, and before you know it, you're all just the same person, and you deny that you could be anything else.
Yeah, I just had that experience. I was in a pagan group, and like everywhere, they're talking about the racial tensions and all this, and they're saying, oh, we want to cultivate diversity, we want more people of color in the group, and then they're basically all speaking the same ideology. And I'm like, well, you got somebody right here. I've got an opinion. Would you like to hear it? And they really didn't. Okay. Well, that's why you don't have people of color in your group.
Yep. We want diversity of representatives, not diversity of opinion. Yeah. We want a lot of different people that say the same thing, not anyone who's got something else to say.
Yeah. And I appreciate that diversity so much. We're not, I think if I had to hang out with all of my 25-year-old self, oh my God. Oh my God. You never grow that way. So
yep. No, I agree.
And sometimes the baby of the group has just not had enough experience to be jaded. And that is the wisest person in the group, So I really like having people who are naive and really haven't had that much experience too, because they could say some really profound things.
Yeah. And that's something that makes me think, okay, so like you said, we can, if we are growing, if we continue to grow and we are, having healthy reflection, we are, maybe the members of our tribe have all gotten to what we all perceive as a pretty good place. We are growing, we are doing much better. It can really help to get those, babies or people that are completely away from the growth that y'all experienced to remind you that, like, oh yeah, not everybody thinks like us. Not everybody is as focused on growing as we are. We need to remember that our message, whether it's a message or opinion or, resources or tools for growing, not everybody has these. Not everybody is looking at them. Not everybody is using them. And now we have this ability to show someone else what we learn and then learn from them, because they're bringing in this fresh energy, this new, these new opinions that we may have completely forgotten about or already in our heads moved past and kind of, ignored them.
Yeah, it's all a circle. It all comes back.
Yeah.
That's why really. I love Pan Society is so simple. Everything is sacred. That's a pretty simple thing. And then the path, sovereignty, connection, and oneness. I think if you stay within that framework, you're always going to have some guidelines, because what I see for some, and I do this too, is that, you'll forget the big picture, and that's the oneness. If you get lost in your opinion and it doesn't represent oneness, then it's missing something. You need to keep going. So I do try to use that as my guide. How does this fit into here? And so far, or the archetypes or the elements or they're basics. And if I can't make it work, then I'm just like, okay, I need to think about this some more.
Yeah. No, everything has a lesson. Everything is a part of that oneness, whether it recognizes it or not. And, these things will teach you a different lesson at different times. Sometimes they will teach you the opposite lesson that they taught you last time, because everything. The complementary duality is in everything.
Yeah.
You can see it everywhere, and you just have to open yourself up to it to help you maintain that balance. Which is why, I wanted to talk about shadow in the first place, because you see in a lot of spiritual communities, whether it's, an organized religion or, like Christianity, for example, or a, neo-spiritual movement like the love and light kind of community and stuff like that, they always want to put this darkness onto something else. The darkness is not a part of us. There's a devil that is responsible for everything. There is, this darkness that must be avoided at all costs. Like, no, that's, darkness is just something that you can't see or wish not to see or try to hide. But when you go back to that oneness, even the most horrible things you can think of, those are still part of the universe. Yeah. Those still all came from the same source. That, love and hate came from the same things. Light and dark came from the same things. They all stem from the same origin. So can anything be bad or good? Not really. Only how you wish to integrate these things in your life and, use the energies that come your way.
And I think that's good too, for reminding ourselves why we don't have dogma. Because you can't. Nothing's absolute.
Right.
Yeah. And see, that's something I've said before. That's what I love about Pan Society, is that no one's pretending to know the truth. No one's pretending to have the answer.
Right.
The spiritual journey is that we're all on it together and continuing through it no matter what. And it's been really valuable to me.
Well, I enjoy having you here.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I found y'all. Honestly, it was a complete accident. I just found one of your videos on YouTube. But I've already felt like I've gotten a lot from joining the group and being able to talk to all of y'all. And I liked this. I would love to be on the podcast again. This is super fun.
Sure, for sure.
But yeah, no, I'm really happy that y'all created this, and I think you're doing really good.
Thank you. So let's close by sending gratitude to the elements, our loving, helping ancestors, for being here. Thank you, Simon, for being a guest. And thank all our listeners for joining us on this edition of Modern Animism Radio. And don't forget to donate on our website at pansociety.net if that speaks to you. I'm Laura Giles for Pan Society. See you next week.